So Don's experience at the Parker Company makes him a great fit to interview our keynote, Jonathan Tisch, today about this amazing and relevant new coordination between hotel and sports venue design. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jonathan Tisch of the Loews Corporation and Don Lockerbie of the Parker Company.
Good afternoon, everybody.
What a privilege for me, as a lifetime New York Giants fan,
Go Blue.
to be up here with a great man in our world of sport, and then to be in his hotel as well. And from the Parker Company, which I represent, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Don.
We've also done some work at the stadium, too. So, not to preempt all we're going to do, but I tried to create an interview with Jonathan. We're going to pretend we're on the Tonight Show or some kind of good show and get some entertaining conversation going, and then we'll leave it for some questions and answers.
Great.
If Jonathan will look at effectively maybe 5 or 6, 7 categories. But I think with you here and look at this crowd, it's standing room only,
Wonderful.
Jonathan. And I think the fact is people are here because we're sports people, so the Giants experience is critical. But I'm also told that the hotel sold out in a matter of days once it was announced because everybody wanted to come back to your hotel and South Beach. And Bill just talked about our topic today, the trends that hotels have been setting and why stadiums are now looking more and more. But maybe you could start off by just giving us an idea of your family's history into this, into both sport and hotels, and some of the funny incidents I know that might even take us to how you got here and why we're here.
Don, thank you. And let me add my welcome to Bill. Bill and I have been friends for 35, 40 years. He does a great job representing Miami Beach and the South Florida area. And Bill, I want to thank you for your confidence in us. As Bill noted, we are thrilled to be the hotel that he has used twice in the history of this great organization, and we thank you all for the confidence in us at the Loews Miami Beach Hotel. Very briefly, my family goes back to Brooklyn, New York. My father and uncle, who sadly are no longer with us, started what is today Loews Corporation with their parents, and goes back to right after World War II. And they were in the, I can't even call it the fashion industry. Originally, pre-World War II, they would sell bits of clothing and materials to stores to make other pieces of designs. And then they heard, right after World War II, they heard about an opportunity to lease a summer camp in a town called Lakewood, New Jersey, which is southwest of New York City. They figured they didn't know a lot about the business, but they would take the chance, that they would try and see if they could make this work. It became successful. 2 years later, they heard that the big hotel in town, which was called the Laurel and the Pines, was also up for lease by the same owners of the summer camp. So that's how, in 1947, they got into the hotel business. I was actually born in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1953. We had 5 hotels.
Did your father win that night?
Well, this was way before gaming. Much before that. It was when the Miss America pageant was big, and I remember when I was 6 or 7 years old meeting Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis and Dean Martin at the big nightclub in town. And then our history actually took us a few miles north of here, because in 1957, my father and uncle took a huge risk, and they built what Billy referred to as the Americana of Bal Harbor. And you have to understand that when the hotel opened in 57, all the action had been more in this area, South Beach, Fontainebleau, Eden Rock, and nobody was doing anything that far north. And it became very successful. The Loews name came into the family when in 1959, my father and uncle bought Loews Theaters, which had been separated under antitrust from MGM. There used to be one company. MGM would make a movie, it would automatically go into a Loews Theater. The government said that's not going to work.
Well,
so it worked fine until the government said it's not any longer. So that's how we got the Loews name. Today, the corporation has assets of about $80 billion. We have a market cap of about $20 billion. I'm honored to be co-chairman of the board of our parent company, Loews Corporation, with my cousin Andrew. I'm also chairman and CEO of Loews Hotels. So I am third generation after 75 years to have day-to-day responsibility of the hotel company. We are in 4 other distinct and unique businesses. Our largest subsidiary is called CNA Insurance, which is based in Chicago, property and casualty company. We have a company called Diamond Offshore, which is an owner of offshore oil rigs based in Houston. We have a company called Boardwalk Pipelines, also based in Houston, that is a natural gas distribution system. And recently, we added another leg of the stool when we acquired a company called Consolidated Container Corporation, which is a plastics company that makes household goods such as orange juice containers and milk containers and oil containers, and they're based in Atlanta. So those are the 5 subsidiaries of Loews Corporation. A very, very brief story about this hotel.
This is the one I wanted to hear.
25 years ago, the city of Miami Beach owned the land that we are sitting on, and the smaller building, which is Landmark, the St. Moritz, which originally opened in 1927. This was just tumbleweed. There was a strewn lot with garbage. The building across the way had been closed for 10 years, and this was 25 years ago. Many hotel companies responded to the RFP put together by the city because the city announced that they would be a partner. They were going to put cash into the deal. And this was in a period where the convention center was up and running, but as Billy well knows, there weren't enough luxury rooms to support the kinds of groups like this that would come into town. So we responded to the RFP. This is over about a year process, and we were up against the biggest names in lodging. At that point, we were fairly small. Today, we have 24 hotels. I think then we had about 10. We were up against Hyatt and Marriott and Sheraton and Ritz-Carlton, and we were the underdogs. And we put together a presentation. The city said you have 1 hour to make your presentation. And in that hour, you have to show us how you're going to design the hotel. This is obviously a very architecturally sensitive neighborhood. You have to show us how you're going to operate and market it, how you're going to finance it. Clearly, fortunately, Loews Corporation sits on today $5 billion of cash, so that wasn't an issue. And then you have to explain why you want to be the City of Miami Beach's partner. So the presentation now was about 22 years ago, and I went to Tufts University in Boston, and I graduated in 1976, and I was a TV producer for 3 years at the NBC station in Boston. I produced the pregame Patriots show, which is interesting for a Giants co-owner today. And so I had a bit of a TV background. And I suggested to our team that we should end our we should end our presentation 1 hour with a video about our family coming back, the opportunity to return to South Beach, because we hadn't been here in about 15 years since the Americana had been sold in 1972. So I said, why don't we do a video of my mother, Joan Tisch, who actually turns 90 on Thursday. So let's do a video of Joan Tisch asking people, because the Olympics, for those of you that are old enough to remember, the Olympics were in Lillehammer, Norway, that same period, and David Letterman sent his mother to Lillehammer to ask men and women about what this huge global event coming to this tiny little town in Norway, the impact. So I said, why don't we send my mother, and she'll ask men and women on the street. So the presentation was in June. It's now about May, and everybody said, how's it going with your mother? And I said, well, I haven't asked her. They said, why? Because I said, even though she's my mother, she scares me. So I said, I have another idea. And they said, what's that? I said, I'm going to dress up as my mother.
This is the best.
And I'm going to do the interviews in drag. So they said, you realize that there are going to be like 400 people at the presentation. I said, this is how we're doing it. And I came down here one day and told my mother's a blonde. I had a blonde wig on. I put on Sally Hansen press-on nails. I think they still scarred my nails 20 some odd years later. And I spent a day here asking men and women what it would be like for the Tisch family and Loews Hotels to return to South Beach. Edited the video, it was 3.5 minutes. And the night before our presentation, I invited my father down because he was the historical link because of our family's history down here. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning, just by luck of the draw. We're the first group the next morning at 9 a.m. to make the presentation in front of hundreds of people at the convention center a few blocks away. Well, I run the video, we're very happy with everything. My father looks at me and he says, what is that? I said, that's how we're doing a presentation. He said, have you lost your mind? I said, I don't think so. He said, you can't show that. Literally, we're 8 hours from showing it. I said, well, on my business card, It says CEO of Loews Hotels.
We're going to show it.
This is my decision, and we're going to show it. Next morning, go through the presentation. The whole thing has been set up perfectly. A woman who at the time was our head of sales and marketing, who is from Dallas, has a very deep Texas accent, introduces the video. And for the first minute of a 3.5-minute video, not one person laughed. And if you want to talk about your life passing in front of you, I'm thinking, well, maybe I could become a TV producer again. And so then people started to get it, and by the end of the video, it was very clear that I was just trying to add a little humor and a little levity to a very serious opportunity. But the real reason I did it was to show that we really wanted to be here. The next day in the Miami Herald, we won the vote 9-0. It took us a year to negotiate with the city.
Were you one of those voters, Bill?
He was not on the commission at the time, but he was aware of everything. So the next day in the Miami Herald, front page story, Loews Hotels wins the right to negotiate with the city of Miami Beach. Front page, it says, if the CEO of Loews is willing to dress and drag, they must really want to be a partner of the city of Miami Beach. Here we are. The hotel has been open for close to 19 years. It is 790 rooms with 45,000 square feet of meeting space. We just spent $50 million renovating it, and the purpose of the renovation was to keep ahead of the trends. I know we're going to get into some of these questions, but this is an example of how we felt with all of the new rooms coming into town, with all of the options available to Meeting Planners Association executives, to families making decisions about how they want to travel with their kids. We felt that we had to totally, after some 18 years, we had to reinvent ourselves at Loews Miami Beach Hotel. $50 million later, the renovation is complete. We've touched every aspect. All 790 rooms were renovated, new lobby, new bar. I saw many of you people having lunch downstairs, new pool deck, new outdoor restaurant, new kids club. Everything is brand new. And it, once again, is a reflection of the competitive marketplace that we find ourselves in here. And we did not want to give up our role as one of the dominant properties in South Beach.
Well, that leads us right into the next area, which for my notes says competition, because the fact of the matter is everyone in this room, we all know that we're in competition both for our businesses and creating our guests, our experiences, helping our salespeople work the sponsorships out. And so with a $50 million reimagination is what I wanted to call it. I think the fact that that last story shows the first bit of business, which is by being imaginative and by being creative, you won the job. And so I think as we look at stadiums and arenas, we're beginning to see buildings that used to just be big tin boxes and barns that are now becoming competitive social fabrics in our community, great hospitality areas, and the place that people now want to come early and stay late and spend money at a premium experience. And so perhaps you could tell us if this experience with the whole 23 years of the Loews experience at this property and how it also perhaps has made its way into your thinking of what you've done at Giant Stadium in the last 7, 8, 10 years. You've taken an old stadium that was in its prime, one of the great monuments of sport, and now you've only made it bigger and better and more fascinating, again, setting a new standard.
Well, Don, it is a question that every single person in business, but especially this business, and there are so many similarities between sports and hospitality, it is the core question. And what we like to look at Loews Hotels really are two areas. They are change and people. And if you're not evolving, changing, understanding trends, seeing what your competition is doing, having a sense of how technology impacts every single thing that we do today, if you're not open to new ideas and planning for the future in terms of having capital to renovate, of having access to capital to build new buildings, then you're in serious trouble. Change is happening whether you like it or not, and you need to be at the head of that conversation. You get into the people aspect because that's another element of what we all do, is because without the men and women who are our team members, we are nothing. I sit in New York in an office on 61st Street and Madison Avenue. We've doubled the size of Loews Hotels in the last 5 years, and there are 10,000 men and women who every single day, most of them put on a uniform, do jobs that are not particularly glamorous. Being a housekeeper is a difficult job. When you walk into a room, you don't know what to expect, and I know you find this hard to believe, but some people are not so tidy when they stay in a hotel. But these,
or in a suite.
Or in a suite. These are challenging jobs. And so with the 7 people that report to me, we try to set a tone, and getting one of the real challenges is the message and the messenger. The message is really important, the messenger is equally as important. So you can sit around with your fellow executives and make all the decisions you want, but unless you find a way to get your vision, what you want to accomplish in your organization, that sense of hospitality that is at the core of all of our businesses, unless the man and woman who might be at an entry-level position, unless they get it, you've got serious problems. So the notion of change and people are really important aspects to think about every single day. There has been a sense of the connection of hospitality and sports because of a word that's going to be used probably a lot over the next 48 hours, and that is the word experience. And in our society today, people want an experience. You pick up a newspaper any morning and you see that the retailing industry is suffering because maybe people will say to themselves, well, do I need another sweater? Do I need another suit? Do I need another purse? I probably can go another season without buying something. But what I remember more than the sweater I just bought is the experience that I had with my spouse, my partner, with my kids, with my family. That's what I remember. And that's one of the reasons that the travel industry continues to do well. And that's what all of you are selling. You are selling the experience of coming into a building to see something that is probably the last vestige of, if you put it in terms of TV, it's probably the last vestige of must-see TV or appointment TV is a sporting event. Because anything else you can time shift, and obviously we get our entertainment today through Hulu and YouTube, but sports is live. Sports is happening at that minute. And that's what we are selling wearing my Giants hat now. And one of the reasons with the Jets we decided that we needed a new facility was that we saw Giant Stadium, even though, as you probably went to as a kid, some of the best sight lines in the history of the NFL, but it was time for a new facility. And when, as some of you know, it's difficult to build these buildings with one owner, but try building a building when you have partners, and we respect the Jets, they are an incredible organization, but just everybody brings their own ideas. Remember, the Jets were going to build a building in the area that is now called Hudson Yards, which is also going to be used for the Olympics. When the Olympic bid failed for New York City, which I was very involved with, when the bid went down, the Jets decided that they couldn't build there. And that's when the Jets and the Giants came together. And it was a very prudent partnership because if we had each put up our own buildings, and MetLife Stadium, when it opened in 2011, cost $1.6 billion. If we each put up our own buildings for $1.2, $1.3, $1.4 billion, we would have been going after the same people in terms of suite sales and PSLs, and that's why I decided to partner with the Jets, and it's worked out incredibly well. They're great partners. Ron Van de Veen, who is our current CEO, Brad Main before him, Mark Lamping before him, they've all done a great job to ensure that MetLife is considered one of the great facilities. And other than NFL income, it is the highest grossing venue in the world for
Well, can I interrupt you right there? And maybe you know it, I hope you do, but in case you didn't, last night at a sports conference like this one in Dublin, Ireland, MetLife Stadium was awarded 2017 Sports and Entertainment Venue of the Year. So maybe we can congratulations. You know, to be able to do that, and when you think about it, you've just got to be ahead of the curve. And so, again, when I look at what involvement we have in the world of sports and arenas, all of us in the room, Jonathan's experience in hotels, we at the Parker Company 95% of our business is in the hotel business. For 60 years, we do about 150 hotels a year worldwide, so that was the core business. 3 years ago, I started the sports business, and Bill was kind enough to mention the NFL baseball stadiums we've been doing and currently are doing. The fact of the matter, though, is to stay ahead of the curve, Jonathan, is amazing. You're dealing in the hotel side with competition like Airbnb or you know, the whole online services industry. I know here in Miami Beach, they're not happy about Airbnb at all because we're a hotel industry. But we're also, I'm the son of, I have a 30-year-old son. He's an athlete, but I think he's watching more of his sports on YouTube and Snapchat than he is buying season tickets. And so when you develop an 80,000 seat stadium like you have at Giant Stadium with all the bells and whistles, of course, 6-7 years ago in 2011, it would have been the standard of the world, the best, and to show in 2017. It's winning best venue still after these years. The trends that you're facing, the competition that you're facing in hotels has to translate over to stadiums. I liken it to this. If those of you who are paying a nice rate for Jonathan here, you know what you're paying for a night, and it's not too far off from a plastic chair you might get sitting in a football stadium. You know, you get a whole room and a TV and a restaurant and a bed and a shower when you come to the Lowews, but when you go to MetLife Stadium, you're sitting on a plastic chair. If you spend a lot more, you get to sit in a beautiful suite. The competition and the way things are changing. Will millennials be buying suites? Will they sit for 4 hours in a plastic chair? So you must, as both a Giants chairman and a hotelier, have to face these two issues every day. What would you say to our team about that?
They're the basis of what we do every day, once again in lodging and in the conversations about MetLife Stadium. So MetLife is 6 years old. We're very proud of it. It's still doing phenomenally well. Jets are great partners. But then you look at the next generation of stadiums, Minneapolis, what I guess your firm is working on, Atlanta. I've seen the plans initially for what the Rams are building in Los Angeles, and obviously it's going to take it to another generation. But the same thing is true in the hotel business. If you look at some of the new properties that are being built, and we currently have 4 hotels under construction. And so we're always trying to find what our clients are interested in, where the meeting planners want to do their conferences like this. And who knows what the millennials are going to want to do in 10 years. But the challenge is, how do you take an experience and make it worthwhile enough in terms of somebody's time and energy and their dollars to get up out of their home in front of their TV, which may be 75 inches wide, and they can watch the red zone and watch their head spin by watching 20 games at once, but make them want to get up, sit in traffic, and go to an event. And that is obviously the challenge that every single person in this room faces every single day. What are you doing with your colleagues and your team members to talk about how compelling it can be at an event in person? And it is involved, as we all know, in technology and new trends in food and beverage, in the sense of architecture and what you put into these facilities. We're thrilled that Steve Ross and the Dolphins finally have completed the renovation of the property, because now the Super Bowl is coming back to Miami in 2020, and having a property of 790 rooms. We love it when Super Bowl is in Miami. We also love it when it was at MetLife Stadium, and I was fortunate with Woody Johnson to co-chair the host committee for our Super Bowl now close to 3 years ago. So it's a sense of where the world is going, of understanding how you need to evolve and change and adapt, and hope that the technology doesn't get to a point where people are going to say, I'm not going to go because I don't want to pay the money to park and get out of the car, especially when it's 20 degrees in the northern climates or it's warm in other climates. But then you look at what Jerry Jones has created down in Dallas. It is a phenomenal building. But Jerry understands what people want. He knows that, yes, they want a great game, and the Cowboys are a competitive team. And I've been there on many occasions when the Giants have played. And that screen that hangs over the field is nothing short of phenomenal. You find that yourself watching that maybe more than the game. But he's also got an incredible art collection. He's got great food and beverage. He's now building out his practice facility in Frisco. And we look at it as an opportunity also. We announced about a month ago
Texas Live.
So in partnership with the Texas Rangers and the Tisch companies, we are building in Arlington, literally in the shadow of AT&T Stadium, we're building a 302-room Live by Loews hotel that will have some 40,000 square feet of meeting space as part of Texas Live, the project that the Tisches and the Texas Rangers are doing. As many of you probably know, the old, and I use that in quotes, because it's only about 10 years old, the older Texas Ranger Stadium will be retrofitted into a concert venue. They have a new facility under construction for $1 billion. And then, as the Tisches have done in St. Louis, in Kansas City, in the Power and Light District, in Philadelphia, at Xfinity Live, they are going to build out this entertainment complex with retail and F&B. And we are going to be building the first of what we hope are a few Live by Loews hotels.
I imagine some of these stadium folks might want to talk to you about locating a Live by Loews there. One last question, and then we may open for a few questions and let you have a parting comment. Again, we've talked about your $50 million renovation here, and we know that MetLife is 7 years old, and you may have some plans there. Our company working on new stadiums like the Braves and Rams and the Falcons we're finishing, but everybody tonight will go to Hard Rock, and all the new furniture and operations equipment that you'll see, Parker was responsible for that, as we're doing at all of these. So FF&E is a major piece. You know, when you come to a hotel like this, the architecture is wow, but nothing works without the FF&E. Now, I think it took the Dolphins about 25 years to replace all their FF&E. What do you see as a trend in trying to keep that wow factor of technology, furniture, etc.? And if you were going to give any advice, not necessarily to your competitors, but if you're going to give any advice about changing out FF&E, furnitures, operating equipment, supplies, things of that nature, maybe that would be our last question.
It's a wonderful thought to end on this portion. My comment, suggestion would be reserve more for FF&E, because you're going to need to spend it. And it's just the nature of competition today. The hotel business, the old axiom used to be 4% of gross revenues. I think at Loews Hotels, we're now up to 6% of gross revenues, and then you get years of extraordinary capital expenditures like we just did here. This notion of FF&E is so important to us at Loews Hotels because, once again, our competitors are so much bigger than we are. You've got Marriott, which just absorbed Starwood, Hilton, Hyatt, IHG. They're really big, and we're kind of small, so we have to be really competitive. One of the ways we're so competitive is through architecture and design. I approve every single fabric, chair, lamp, piece of carpet for every one of our hotels, whether it's new construction. As I said, we have 4 hotels under construction now, or a renovation. Because I feel that part of my job is to be the keeper of the soul, 3rd generation of Loews Hotels. And the look of our properties is really important to us. So I think that level of involvement and attention to detail is vitally important, and that's how you set yourself apart from the competition. You mentioned some of the headwinds that we in the lodging industry face. Certainly the shared economy that we currently are all a part of is having a huge impact on the lodging industry. Technology through the OTAs, the online travel agencies, the Expedias, the Travelocities of the world. If you're a hotel company or an individual owner, or in your businesses also, and you're not paying attention to TripAdvisor, you are asking for problems. Because somebody's going to write something on TripAdvisor, whether it's true or not, and if your team members aren't looking at it, digesting it, and figuring out a way to ascertain if it's true, or then make an improvement, then you're missing something that could grow into a huge problem. So understanding technology, seeing what the headwinds are, incorporating it into your business model, understanding that at some point, even when you have brand new buildings and they cost a lot of money, you're still going to have to renovate, and reserving the capital, it will make your life a lot easier in the future years to come.
Thank you, Jonathan.